And I didn't want to respond because I was like, I don't want to tell you.
You didn't respond, ghosted. You did not respond. You said something like, I'm still working on it. It's like, oh, you are not.
Okay. I straight up lied to a colleague. I am so sorry. But it was for content today. And I really wanted to
for the podcast.
For the podcast.
That's going to be my new line when you guys ask me something. I'll just be like, save it for the podcast.
Welcome to Learning Out Loud, where we get curious about all things teaching and learning. I'm Stefan, a regional technology coach, here with Andy, a regional math coordinator, and Cari, a regional science coordinator. We're just three educators on a mission to dig into what works, what doesn't, and what we're still figuring out. This podcast is for teachers, coaches, and leaders who want to grow in their professional practice. We don't have all the answers, but we're asking the questions and recording the process. Let's go to work.
So I was in charge of chapter 6, and effective questions kind of goes in line with the idea of a task, and they kind of teased it out like next chapter. I think that language for chapter 6 we were on questioning, but I want to start us off with one of your thinking prompts, Stefan. Okay.
Oh.
So we go around and do a lot of gym time. So sometimes there's concession stands, and most of the time I have my wallet where I can dole out dollar bills. But this time I did not have my wallet. So I dug into what my friends refer to as the Slurpee fund. You guys all have Slurpee funds? Slurpee, which is your coin, wherever you throw coins in your car. We called it a Slurpee fund growing up.
Gotcha. Okay.
Slurpee, it's a 7-Eleven drink.
I know what Slurpees are.
Okay, I'm just checking. Jeez. Anyway, so
these young people, we got to keep them moving along.
Yeah.
I was a child of the 90s, man, like a true child of the 90s. I feel like that was peak Slurpee.
Yeah, so I had all these quarters in my pocket for the concession stand, which then of course I didn't use because I didn't need them. And then I get home and I put them on the counter, and my daughter goes, "Hey, we should throw these into our piggy bank," which we used to, hold on to and collect and then take them to our ocean trip for the arcade, which now doesn't even use quarters anymore. So it's a irrelevant process in the Boyd household. But that led us to, hey, we should count out our piggy bank. So I'm going to show you a video. And I want you, Stefan and Cari. Cari has already been a part of this a little bit, but I'm going to just play along here. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So here's the Boyd piggy bank. Okay. Everybody see it?
Yep.
Okay. There's pennies, there's nickels, there's dimes, there's quarters in there. And so my question to you, Stefan, and there's my great videoing.
We will put this video in the Canvas course for people who are taking the PD.
Perfect. Okay. So that's a video of my little, it looks like a little maybe beehive kind of a jar. It's about 8 by 8 inches or so tall, whatever. But
oh no. Do I have to guess?
Yeah. How much? What do you think's in there? How many dollars?
Do I get to go back and look at the video again, or was that my only shot?
I can share it again if you like.
I had to guess based on the empty jar. I was only shown the empty jar and then said, "Cari, guess how much money was in here."
Yeah,
this isn't going to help me. There's no way I'm going to be able to get this. I don't know why I asked you the video again. This is just oh man. I think is Cari going to guess too?
I already have Cari's estimation.
Oh, what did Cari guess?
No,
what?
you.
No.
Oh, dang. I think there's $53.47.
Ooh, nice. $53.47. Okay.
$53.47.
All right. So now I'm going to go.
That's way too high. No. Can I change? That was way too high.
Okay. Go ahead and change, Stefan.
No. I'm sticking with that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Now, this is not a dollar amount, but a total number of pennies that you would think. Total number of pennies.
Total number of pennies?
Yeah.
There are, at least 2, because I don't know how else you get to 47. There are pennies. There are 32. Let's say there's 32 pennies. Oh,
Okay.
no.
How many nickels?
Oh, no. Oh, no. I see what's happening here. I'm about to just start making up numbers, and it's not going to get me to whatever my number, I guess, which was what I already forgot. How many nickels? Oh, no. Oh, no.
Fascinating to me. I love this. See, I was you, Stefan. What was it? Thursday night? It's like 9:00 at night, and I get a call from the Boyd family. Cari, estimate how much was in this jar.
Oh, like, come on. He called you off hours?
How many? Because we're doing a math.
They had just gotten home from some game and they were counting money, and so the natural thing is to call Cari.
Because I called. My wife was gone. I called her. She didn't answer. Then I called Cari because we need more data. I was collecting data. Now you're the last data piece here, Stefan.
This is fascinating to me because I've been you, Stefan. Your thought process. I'm like, this is happening. This is all happening.
How many nickels?
How many nickels? It's not going to add up to. What was my guess again?
It's 53.47.
53.47. For the record, I'm going to be transparent here, and then I just pulled up ChatGPT, and I think that would devalue the process. So I'm not going to ask ChatGPT to break down the coins. I'm 53.47. I've closed it. You can see my hands. All right. 53.47. And I said 32 pennies.
32 pennies.
And I'm going to say 50 nickels. Oh, no.
50 nickels. Okay. How many dimes?
Oh my God. 200 dimes.
200 dimes. How many quarters?
There are, let's say, 100 quarters.
100 quarters?
Sure. 100 quarters. 100 quarters. I was just trying to do math in my head.
Okay. You gave from this one little view, which is, my best attempt.
Oh, this is so mean.
All right. So here's my question.
Cari's nodding emphatically. Thank you.
Question to you both. What criterion were you using to give me those guesses of number of coins at each denomination? What were you using? What criteria were you using?
Well, there's some empirical observation on my point. Wait, Cari, did he send you a picture of the jar?
No, he FaceTimed me and held up the empty jar. Just the empty jar, though. Empty.
Hilarious. That is absolutely hilarious. Okay, so there's some empirical observation. Like as you're scanning this video, I'm like, I can see some coins on the outside, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well then there's definitely more than one on a lot of these things. If we're being fully honest, I panicked out here and I had my eyes closed half the time. And even though you're showing me the video, I was trying to envision it in my head. So some empirical stuff. And then I was doing some math in my head, but again, cortisol flooded brain now. And I'm not great at mental math as it is. So, oh man. Okay.
What were you doing? What you did something though.
What do you mean?
You went, the first thing you did was like, oh my gosh, I have to have at least 2. Right?
I said I have to have at least 2 because I said 53.47. And in my head, I just very quickly was like, how do you get to like 47 cents without using 2 pennies?
Okay. So so what were some criteria you were using? You were using the denominations, right? Are there any other characteristics of these coins that you were thinking about?
No, but if I had taken the time to do it, I could have thought about size.
Okay.
Like I see so many quarters and they take up more space, but there's a lot there in the middle. And so dimes are very small. And that actually honestly was a part of it. When I said whatever it was, like 100 dimes, I was like, you could fit a ton of dimes in that thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So here we go. So you had 32 cents in pennies.
Oh, God.
What?
It's going to be nowhere near 53.47.
Oh yeah, I'm with you, Stefan. I'm with you because I did the same thing. I based my initial guess on like, I've taken a jar from our house that was full of coins and I took it in. It was like $139. So when I made my guess, I was like, oh, that jar is smaller than the jar that I took in. So I just gave some rando guess. Then Andy hits me with the old, well, how many pennies are there? How many nickels? And I was like, I don't even know what kind of coins would add up to my guess. Like, I was stressed, like you were stressed, where it's like I started spitting out numbers and then I was like, well, that's only going to be two, like you said 50 nickels, which sounds like a lot. Well, that's only $2.50. How am I ever going to get to my dollar amount when I've only thrown out, 50 of something or 90? I think I said 90 pennies. I didn't even think about the fact that I'm pretty sure I had like 78 as my final whatever. So I need at least three. It should have been 93 pennies or, something like that.
Okay, I will say Andy's house seems a lot more fun than my house currently.
Listen,
different age kids.
That's true.
Look, this is what we did here. So your original guess was $53.47.
You did good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I gave up at one point and just said, however many quarters I need to make it to the amount that adds up to what I said.
Okay. So my question to you then is, why was it easier maybe to get that total amount estimation than it was to then start thinking it in like different sections or chunks?
I think specificity for me in those different sections and chunks, because the total amount was a uninformed guess, pure guess. And when you started breaking down denominations or quantities of these different whatever, I was having to start thinking about, like, I've got a target I'm trying to hit. So yeah, I guess.
Okay.
What I was about to say is I could have been like, oh, now that I'm thinking about this with these different pieces here, I could have brought in a little bit of rationality. Does 53.47 even make sense with what I'm saying here? But I got so stuck on my original guess that like I was more worried about being correct and making everything fit my original answer than I was finding the actual correct answer.
Okay. Cari, any thoughts?
On what my process was?
Yeah. Why was it easy to do a first estimation right out of the gate, the total, versus trying to break it down differently?
Well, like I shared, I've taken a jar of money into the bank, and had it counted or whatever and cashed it out for bills and coins. And so I just had that in my head. So then I was like, oh, it's less, the jar was smaller than that. So I'm just going to go with a number smaller than what I had remembered getting for this jar that I had taken in. So I had kind of this context for it. But yeah, then when you started asking me for pennies, nickels, and dimes, I was like, what?
Okay, so
I have to really think about this thing.
And so then, of course, like we all do for a good parent-teacher or relationship with your children, they're guinea pigs all the time, right? So I asked my son first how much he said. He said $15. All right. And then I asked Lindy, and she said 87. And guess what Hayden did?
Did he change his guess?
He changed his guess.
There we go. Okay, that's what I tried to do. Sounds like a smart kid.
That's what you tried to do. So then after he changed his guess, he's like, no, not that. I'm going to go with $35. So initially he said 15. Lindy said 87. Then he switched it to $35. Okay. I said $46. There were two car wash tokens in there that you may or may not notice. So I saw that. So I guess there was one I saw. So I'm guessing there was two. So I went $46 and two tokens, which is also a good Tool song. Those of you guys check that one out.
46 and two.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I know. That one.
And then Cari goes 74.28, very similar to like you did 53.47. Lindy and Hayden didn't even put cents. I didn't even put cents. I just said dollar amounts. So that's interesting too. We could think about that as well. And then we went down into the same thing. All the kids, I'll start filling that stuff in there as you want. Hayden said 100 pennies. He said 20 nickels. He said 55 dimes. and 80 quarters. So very similar if you look at the relationship, kind of a little bit here and there. But his was $100, I think, was his max, is what, or where was he at? 25. I'm gonna get that right. 25, yeah, $26 or something in quarters. Excuse me, in denominations of. So he was kind of close. Lindy was same, 65 pennies, 75 nickels, 50 dimes, and 40 quarters. Okay. So even though like we were we're nervous about it, relatively speaking, Stefan, you were $6 off of your estimation.
Right? Yeah.
Just kind of thinking that way. So, and then Cari went with, I got to find Cari down there, 86 pennies. I'm going to read my here, 33 nickels, 90 dimes, and 35 quarters. So
I thought I said 130. Well, whatever.
Wait. Did I do that wrong?
I want to say yes, because I thought I said 135. Because at that point I was like, I need to make a whole lot of money right now to get myself.
That's what I did. That is exactly what I did.
Yeah. So then I thought I said 135 quarters.
Maybe I wrote that down, but you were very close again. Like if we can map that out, very close to our what your first estimation was. Okay, so then we did all that, and I got a video that kind of talks them. I don't mean to share that with you, but I kind of put them on. What do you guess now, right? So they have them like captured, and then we started organizing, and then we started thinking about where all the I ended up having to, because again their attention span left after they did the quarters and the dimes, and then Andy had to finish out the rest of it. But my question to you then is, when I asked you give me an estimate, you gave me one answer, right? So there's only really one answer to that piece. So that question was kind of a closed type of question, which Jim Knight talks about, is like, I asked one thing, they gave it back to me, just a call response kind of a thing. So a type of questioning that is mentioned in the chapter about these ideas about closed questions and open questions. And so being mindful of how we are asking, like in an estimation type of a prompt, you have to be committed to a number. So those questions are kind of a closed way of thinking, right? And then I did ask, like, what were some of your criteria that you used to come up with that estimation? You talked about size, and you talked about number of things, maybe frequency, perhaps. Like, I don't see a lot of pennies anymore, but I do see a lot of quarters. So there's going to be more of those things. So all those ideas being a little bit more open and giving you a chance to talk a little bit more about your rationale or your reasoning behind, why you thought there were these 100 pennies or 20 nickels or whatever. So that's one of those, the questioning, the effective questioning is being mindful of the types of questions that you're asking kids, and then having a chance to then either, once they say it, they've committed, also if maybe there's only one right answer, like if I'm, how old are you guys? That you're only going to give me one thing, versus like, how are you feeling today being at your age? Talking about giving some more feedback and more ideas about something like this. Or when else, you guys, here's a go. When else have you needed a chance to estimate in your life, Stefan? When have you estimated before?
Just in general?
Yeah, use this ability, practice of estimation.
More often than I should, I guess. Did some, like, thinking of this summer, did some like home project stuff, and as opposed to measuring, I was like, I guess I measured and then I estimated a little bit there. Let's be about this, and we got some wiggle room. So I think I do that a decent amount. Cari go, and then give me a second to think.
I was thinking I use estimation all the time. I think, like, if somebody asks me, even just like, well, how long is it going to take you to get here? I'm like, I don't know, like maybe 4.5 hours, depending on traffic. And I'm coming through at 5:00, so probably I need to tack on another 30 minutes for traffic. Yep. And even like this weekend, I was talking to my son about car insurance, and I was like, well, it's probably gonna be around $200 a month, like just based on experience, right? Like, I think I estimate all kinds of things. But.
Yeah, that's probably a good one. I guess not to steal yours, but travel would probably be my biggest one, right? Since we do so much of that, I don't have the exact time it's going to take me to get there, but I know it's going to take me roughly an hour 15 to get to the East Wenatchee district office.
Yeah.
Yeah. Might be an hour 20, might be an hour 10. But.
Yeah. So, okay. So we use it, right? If you ask children sometimes, like again, my own kids alone, as I'm thinking like, all right, hey, how long do you think it is from, because they all Lindy goes to school in Elmira and Hayden goes to school in Coulee City. So, but how far away do you think those two towns are? And they are like 5 miles. Sometimes they said 50 miles. Like that idea is something that, being mindful of that, like they don't really understand distances or how long it takes. So giving them a chance to really talk about that. And then while we're driving from Coulee City to Elmira, I can then use my, it has been 8 miles to Heartline, I'm like, oh, okay. So they can kind of adjust. So just that idea of like giving them the sense of chance to estimate, right? There is a right or wrong answer, which is another type of a question that he mentions in his book about, yes, there is only one distance from Coulee City to Elmira, but the kids are as a middle schooler, they're not going to get it unless they pay attention to some milepost signs. But the idea of estimating, the idea of, how much, that is a really good skill for kids to think about. And then it leads to this idea of like, oh, I wasn't that far off, or, okay, maybe, oh, wow, I didn't realize that. But it's safe to make a mistake in estimation, especially when you're doing piggy banks, right? I did say, I almost did Price is Right rules. The closest estimation gets half the kitty or the piggy bank, but we didn't, they left. And so once they stopped,
so you get nothing.
Nothing, it's all mine. And so that idea, so I just want to, kind of incorporate that idea of a math concept or just a thinking concept of a science, because we're still doing it. You both shared how you estimate in real world when they say, when am I going to need this? You're going to need this a lot to have some ideas to make your life a little more functioning or a little more to move it forward. But the idea of asking these questions of like, okay, I didn't ask them like right or wrong is another type of question that Dr. Knight talks about. Opinion questions, all these differences and their importance of, being more willing to participate in a task if you're given a kid to ask an opinion, or if you're given a kid a chance to share a little bit, that's left than a right or wrong, because they're bombarded, every day is a right or wrong question in their learning, perhaps because there's either I got the credit for it or I didn't get credit for it, or I'm giving you my opinion, but that should always be full credit if it's based upon some rationale or some reasoning about an opinion. So those are all these are kind of types of questions that they're thinking about starting in this first chapter of like, being mindful of asking questions. Also what you mentioned before, Stefan and Cari, in that last conversation about, dropping in and then giving them a nudge about a question and then moving them out. Be mindful of what type of questions those are. If it is a right or wrong, those may be more of a thinking type of a question. Like, I wonder what would happen if, or if we doubled this, or those kinds of things, or, if we collected this data later on in the year as we collected more coins in our pocket. So just being able to think about that, of those types of questionings with your students, and then sharing them with the teachers of like, hey, maybe collecting some information as you are observing a classroom, saying, hey, you asked 5 or 6 back-to-back right or wrong questions, and then you noticed that the kids were not engaged. Why could that be the case? Or those types of things, and just be acknowledged that sometimes your outcome of your lesson plan is predicted based upon the types of questioning that you are leading up to that. So if you're asking them a bunch of right or wrong and all of a sudden Andy's missed 4 in a row, I'm shutting down perhaps,
right?
Because now I'm not done. If you ask my opinion about something, I might be back engaged with it. And if it's because I'm passionate about that, what's your opinion on this 6-7 thing? Right? I have no idea, but at least I'm engaged now.
Complete ignorance.
Right? I'm exactly. But my gosh, it is out there. But I can think about it because I'm curious about what you have to say, Stefan, because I have no idea. And it's an opinion that I'm interested in and those types of things. So they list a whole bunch of ideas about those types of questions here in the text. Asking the right question at the right time is what they're really considering where you're at, and then the type of question or the kind of question, and then really thinking about these 2 other ideas about what is the why component of our question, and what is our kind of that level of understanding or level of skills that the kids might have to come to it. So kind of these 2 parts that I looked at this chapter as is really thinking about how we're asking questions and those, what does it give the kids an opportunity to expand on, but also having that lens as an instructional leader or a teacher in your classroom to say, ooh, this one might be a little bit, might be over the top because of the knowledge that's required, like a number talk. I want to bring the knowledge way down so kids can have access to the conversation. So that may be more lumped into a knowledge type of a question, or something that's more of a skill. Like I try to ask you all, what was one of the skills that you used to estimate these coins? And you did it already. My kids did the same thing too. I think they both right around they got to the dimes. They're like, oh wait, how much? They asked what number am I at right now with my pennies and my nickels?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's a deep thinking right there, right? Because they have to be mindful of all of those numbers that they're throwing out have a value or a meaning now. So I can't just say 100. I mean, you can, but then that's and wait, the number that I thought I estimated is not going to add up to my number that I'm guessing with all these individual pieces. So they had to make that internal connection about, ooh, there's those skills that I'm thinking about. Dimes are smaller, so there might be more, or they're pennies I don't see a lot of, or I see a lot of quarters, and Dad's always throwing quarters in there because we want to have, arcade or whatever. But and then the final thing, talking about this big idea, I kind of try to ask as well, when have you used estimation in your world? That idea of thinking about if this connecting something that they could experience to something outside. And so, I mean, this chapter was really thinking about those ways, and then how we can ask these questions, and the certain part of where can we look at I think you said it last chapter, Stefan, about the intensive, explicit, or the constructivist types of questioning. So the same idea, and there's a figure on page 165 that talks about these types of questions and where they fall into these ideas of what type of a classroom or what type of an instruction strategy that you may be using. So you might consider constructivists have more of those open-ended, big idea, opinion type of things that we ask kids, and they usually tend to be fewer in number because of the conversation, because of the things that are happening. And then the idea of looking at intensive, explicit, sometimes those are the ones that we get worksheety. We could get worksheet out because there's only right or wrong answers, or it is closed types of thinking or questioning. And they have to be able to have some type of knowledge or skills that they're thinking. So as you think about what we did with this activity estimation, I will give the answer about. Oh,
I just assumed you weren't getting it because I thought I knew you well enough. What a treat.
Well, no, because then Cari, I think Saturday or Sunday was like, hey, how close was I? And I didn't want to respond because I was like, I don't want to tell you.
You didn't respond, ghosted. You did not respond. You said something like, I'm still working on it. It's like, oh, you are not.
Okay. I straight up lied to a colleague. I am so sorry, but it was for content today. And I really wanted
save
to
it for the podcast.
For the podcast.
That's going to be my new line when you guys ask me something. I'll just be like, save it for the podcast.
Saving it for the podcast. But I also want, there's all those pieces that were also highlighted here, are interesting to think. So one of my questions I was thinking about you, Kay, in this idea of questioning, or just this general, like when you think of a teacher, right? You asked it already a little bit, Stefan, about what are some things that you're thinking about, or what would you, as an instructional coach, whatever lens you want to say, like when the kids walk in, what are some things that you are seeing, or what are you thinking about as kids are moving through in regards to types of questions that you would consider if you're setting up your classroom, or in math or science, or just what you've seen in a lesson or a good teaching strategy about how you open that up and get things set up for success? What are some things that you're thinking about?
I don't know if this is where you want me to go with this answer or not, but it has me thinking about the 2x10 method with students, where you interact with students for 2 minutes a day for 10 days straight. There's some research around that in terms of like kids feeling more connected and bought into school. And I'm thinking that is a great way to build in some intentional questioning, with kids. Like, it's not necessarily academic, but if you're looking to learn more about students and using that 2x10, where, a kid comes in, and I'm going to use Zelda because there was a student in my class who was wearing a Zelda shirt, and I said, hey, what's your favorite Zelda game? I love Zelda. And this kid loved Zelda, like way more. And so then we're chatting. I don't know if it was 10 days, but we were just chatting about Zelda every day. And I played this. And what about this? Have you seen this? And so then, a month down the road, he's like, did you see they released, like they announced a new Zelda game? It's like, oh, what was that? And so, but that little tiny like question, and that was a closed-ended question, but led to, it dug into a kid's passion. And then like 5 or 6 years later, he wrote me a note, like when he was like in high school, about those things. And so like, I'm not sure if that's necessarily where you wanted to go with this one, but that's what's on top of my brain, is how can you use some, like when are you crossing paths with students? How are you starting your class? Especially like, I don't know, we're recording this in September, so towards the beginning of the year, though it's never too late for that, but especially this time of year as you're establishing your classroom culture and like intentionally questioning and inquiring about kids for that type of stuff.
Cool. How about you, Kay? What do you think about effective questions?
When you first asked Stefan the question, I went two different places with it, similar to what Stefan just described. I thought about what is it that I want to learn from my students. So thinking about even there's formative assessment style questions or building relationship questions. And then what is it that I want my students to learn? So what kind of questions can I ask where it engages them in thinking, kind of going back to our last chapter about thinking prompts? What question can I ask so that they start thinking deeper? So I think those are the two ways I was thinking about questioning is around, as a teacher, what do I want to learn? Because it's going to help me with my instruction. And for my students, what do I want them to learn, and what kind of questions can I be asking of them so that they're doing the learning?
When I think something like on that same vein, something I did not do well was dedicating time for students for metacognitive thinking, like metacognitive reflection and questioning for students. I did some things where it's like, like reflecting on the learning target, but like thinking about their own thinking, I did not do a good job of that when I was in the classroom. So like that, like if I had to identify an area, and I can build this into my practice with teachers, like breaking down and being metacognitive about like your own teaching practices and your own, that I think is an area that's ripe for that. I think the intentionality and the depth of that, just as I'm listening to you, Andy, and I'm cruising through these different types of questions. I like that they have these like examples of big ideas, like big idea questions. which are all, very big, very broad, very open-ended. And just thinking about time and place for each of these things, again, just harkening back to the previous chapter around thinking prompts, not the time for a close-ended question, but there are times for that, right? I think we have a tendency to skew towards, well, we really want these open-ended to get kids thinking deeply, and 100%, yes, right? Like you want these open-ended, big picture questions to get kids reasoning. But I'm also left wondering a little bit, when and where is it appropriate for like that smaller, close-ended, targeted questioning? I think it's not as frequent maybe as, I think sometimes it gets a bad rap because we have an over-reliance on it, maybe.
Well, there's one piece too in this chapter that I think has been discussed, researched, talked about, different terms, connect everything. And there's a lot of those in education, right? We call it one thing over here, and then it changes, and it's one thing over here and evolves. But the main gist about this, when using these effective questions that I got from this chapter, is that everyone in the classroom is open for being asked a question, and everyone should ask, be able to respond or have that opportunity to share their thinking, right? So, and then there's some nuances to that they talk about a little bit, but ask the question of everybody. Okay, so like in a number talk that you mentioned before, we ask, hey, how many did you see? So everyone can have that opportunity. And then there's also this part about this idea about, raising the hand up and not having the hand up. So like breaking that very long, probably decades old call response technique, and just sharing with the kids that, oh, hey, if Cari's raising her hand in the corner, guess what Andy doesn't have to do? I don't have to think anymore because Cari's going to move the class along and we are good to go, right? Closer to lunch, closer to recess, close. So having that ability to say like, no, everyone's going to be asked. Also, everyone's going to have an opportunity to share. And then there's strategies to help that out. In number talk, they talk, I'm ready to share when I have my thumb on my chest. I'm ready to share it, because then it's also like, I also don't want it to feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know. Everyone else is raising their hand. Now I'm going to shut down and I'm going to hide back in here and say, nope, I'm not comfortable sharing my thought, even though my thought is part of the conversation. But using these with students, especially if they're right or wrong, like if I don't know the right answer, I'm probably not going to be willing to share as a student. But if it's something that I'm able to like give my opinion on, or if something that I'm able to kind of share my own thinking, then I can start building my confidence as a student, which you mentioned last chapter, teaching kids how to interact, teaching kids how to, share their ideas, coming from a learning environment where they've maybe been isolated and on Zoom forever, or they're isolated on a device for a while. That might be something to consider. There's a really cool part that I'll get to at the very end about what happens when kids are saying, I don't know. That describes kind of some techniques or some sentence starters for you as a teacher. So if you ask a question like, hey, Stefan, how many did you, give me an estimation. And I don't know. You did say that, right? And so then you did. So we can check the tape again, but repeating the question. Oh, come on. How many do you think? Right. So repeating if someone pushes back. If you did say, oh gosh, I don't know. Again, rephrasing it something differently. Like, okay, we collected all this stuff and we put them in this jar. How many think's total in there? What amount? Right. So then kind of giving you another opportunity to share, and then breaking it down to the small start. How many dollars, like what amount of money is in there? And then you were I think by the third or fifth or 100th time, after you were going back and forth, right? It was like $58.47 or whatever it was, right? And so then even it showed the cycle here. Even guess who helped out when you were struggling? Who reached out? Cari.
Yeah, Cari.
She reached out and said, I'm so glad you're feeling this way, because I was also feeling this way. And that just kind of leveled everything out. And then you were able to go through, so kind of we still got to the point where you shared your thinking and what you estimated. But we had to go through this idea about, everyone's going to answer, Stefan. You're not getting out of this, right? I'm going to repeat it. I'm going to rephrase it. I'm going to kind of bring it down to something bite-sized, a little smaller. And then if we have to reach out for someone like, oh, hey, Cari, someone else did this. Give any other ideas, Cari? What do you think? Those ideas and, something about that. And then when it all comes down, we have it all up here. We then celebrate the mistakes, quote unquote, or those ideas that we were way off. Like my son was like, I said 15 and my sister said 87.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, what made you think about that? So celebrate some of those things. And it was, maybe that idea of like really pausing a little bit, thinking more critically about it instead of just sharing out, 15. Well, really, okay, what does that look like? And then I did say something you didn't know, and I should have shared this with you. Again, I said I saw one vacuum token. So that was something that I knew about. And I added $4.50 in quarters to the pot because that was in my pocket from the concession stand. So, that might have impacted some things a little bit. But those ideas of kind of doing that and celebrating, and even when we're doing like number talks or those types of ideas, like, I calculated it wrong, or I saw the dot pattern incorrectly. That's okay, because after some more time, we're going to make mistakes, and it's okay to change our thinking, right? Of course it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
like you said, I want to change my guess, right? Yeah. Go ahead, Stefan. Sorry.
Well, the other thing about this activity is it's inherently low risk. Like as you're talking, I'm thinking about the environment that you did this in. Like the three of us, we get along, we work together well. And we're also on a platform where like it's okay if we make mistakes and goof around a little bit. So like that plays into it. You did a very nice job of letting me doom spiral a little bit, but then prompting me forward. And how hard you can push me, which is hard, right? Like at some point you could have said, make the guess, stupid, let's go. Like that worked for me. And then Cari jumping in did, as I'm thinking about it in the moment, I don't think I could have pointed to this, but Cari jumping in saying, he did this to me too. Like that eased me up a lot, because like I'm more than happy to like play around in an environment like that, but having someone else saying like it wasn't you versus me, it was us versus Andy all of a sudden, right? And so that really did help kind of move my analysis paralysis forward. And then your questions and breakdown did help me think about it differently. And so it was this blend of like the warm demander a little bit, right? And so it has me thinking about when you said everyone's going to answer this, like you're not getting out of this. That's the importance of a teacher's knowledge of their students. How hard can you push your students? Which of these do you, like I was just looking at the list you mentioned here, which of these do you need to use? The repeat, rephrase, reduce, reach out, that like these are all tools in your arsenal. What's appropriate for what kid?
So you guys ready to look at it? Here we go.
Yes.
All right. Now tell me, I'm going to share my screen. Here's the final. Still only one vacuum token.
Wow. Don't say it. We'll just leave it out of the podcast because nobody can see this. We'll just make people very angry.
The total was 77.86.
Oh,
yes.
Cari. Yes. That's what it looks like.
And look at this.
Sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying.
My goodness.
Stefan. I misunderstood what you were saying. Stefan was not okay. I was like, I thought we were done.
We can
beep it out. Beep it out.
Total is 77.86, but what Andy just highlighted was Cari's guess, which there's no way people remember that. 74.28. You would have won Price is Right rules anyway. That's unbelievable. Give Cari that coin jar.
Yeah, you get the jar.
Empty one that I had to guess from.
So again, and the other things that you may notice, like anything else sticking out in terms of because then I asked about the different denominations or the different value, the number of different values of coin. Anything jump out there?
I don't know about the numbers. I'm just thinking about metacognitively about my stuff. What I am doing here is I am I kind of can't stop myself from comparing my answers. I'm looking for right or wrong. And I know that's not the purpose of what we're doing here, but I do think that's important to pay lip service to, in that your students will do that also. right? They are looking to whether they're right or wrong. It does not matter whether or not you have the right or wrong answer. If there is a right or wrong answer, there's probably value in closing the loop and allowing them to, and it also allowing them to make those decisions or make those connections. And I bet you, given the right environment, that can lead to a pretty fun atmosphere. Like you put that up there and then everybody compares and then they get a chance to turn and talk and say, how close were you? And I would have had this. And how did you guess that? And like, look who was the closest and look who was the farthest away. And like, depending on the atmosphere in your classroom, I bet you that could be a really fun moment.
Yep. And any questions that you have right now from looking at this final chunk of data?
80 nickels on the dot.
Mm-hmm.
Just $4, exactly $4 worth of nickels. I would not have expected any of them to be a round number like that.
Oh.
Me neither. I also am surprised about the number of quarters. And then I wonder about, like, I'm thinking outside of this little activity to more of like, is there a connection with production of coins related to this data? Like, I know for a while we put quarters out with all these states, right? So there's a lot of quarter production. So is that why we saw at least twice as many quarters than anyone guessed, right? Or things like pennies, like I would not expect 200 pennies in there.
No.
Yeah.
You know?
But I think it also like the jar, depending on the use of the jar. So like at my house, we've got a jar of coins. And I would guess that there are very few quarters because quarters are used for car washes. So I'll go in there and grab quarters. Or if I need like a couple bucks, I might grab a few quarters to cover my $2 or whatever. And then my son now has to go to the laundromat. So when he comes home to visit, he raids the jar of quarters. And so at my house, even if there might be more quarters in production out there in the US, quarters are non-existent in that jar. So, because they've all been picked over.
Cool.
For people listening, total 77.86. There are 216 pennies, 80 nickels, 132 dimes, 236 quarters.
And one vacuum token.
Andy guessed 2 vacuum tokens.
I did, because I saw, like, again, I cheated a little bit because I looked at it, I was like, ooh, token, I got to remember that one. So then my tool guess of 46 and 2 vacuum tokens is what I landed on. So that the chapter that I really like, if we start connecting all these pieces as the book starts moving forward, again, a lot of good things. They also suggested some ideas about how to help this with teachers. And again, this is really good, like that clinical supervision type of an idea, saying, okay, I'm just going to observe, fly on the wall, and I'm going to write down the types of questions that you are asking kids, right? And it might start out with the number of questions that you're asking, right? And that's, I mean, we all could talk about that too, like saying the idea of like, you only asked 5 questions today and they were all closed, right or wrong. So what was that didn't take a lot of time. So what does that mean about the rest of the instructional time throughout your class? Were they on their own on a worksheet? Were they working in group? Like, so those ideas of just listening, if, you know, having that reflective piece, like you said, like, you know, we need less amount of these types of questions to really dive into it. But I thought it was some interesting pieces, and I'm looking forward to see how it's going to connect to what Cari is going to talk about stories as we move forward.
Thanks for learning with us today. If something we said sparked a thought, made you nod, or something Andy said made you roll your eyes, we'd love to hear about it. Share the episode, tag a colleague, send it to your PLC, or just keep the conversation going within your own team. You can connect with us via the feedback form in the show notes, and we'd love to hear your thoughts, feedback, and suggestions for topics to cover in future episodes. We're all growing together, and that starts with paying attention to our own practice.